panelists very briefly. I'll start with Dr. Anthony Conrad Kapoza, who is the Dean of the Faculty of Law at Uganda Christian University, Mukono. Dr. Kapoza holds the Doctor of the Science of Law degree in Intellectual Property and Cyber Law from the University of Illinois College of Law in Urbana. Is that Champaign or Campaign? Champaign, USA. And he holds a Master of Laws in International Economic Law, specializing in Intellectual Property Law from the University of Warwick in Coventry. And he's also a graduate of Bachelor of Laws, Makerere University. He will tell us a bit more of his work and his research, and maybe we could give him 15 minutes to do that.
I'm very excited to be here at the ANU workshop, mainly because just a few years ago, as Daniel said, we got together, Josephine Nagere, the current president, Captain Leon was in the US, some other colleagues, Bruce inclusive, and many others, and shared with us this idea that many of us had actually just been nursing to bring doctoral people together and see how we can use our research for the good of our country. So last year, the annual conference happened here, actually, it's about that time that I was also going through the preliminary defense to my thesis, so I wasn't here at the time. But now that I'm back and I'm seeing the fruits of what we discussed and decided to put together coming to fruition, that makes some good excitement. Daniel and I go back so many years. We've been in law school together and shared so many stories together and research, so working together on a project like this is equally exciting. I was invited to talk about quite a number of things. I was assigned some questions, but principally coming down into my experiences, the research that I did, and what it has taught me generally. My research was on the topic of the cultural divide. The topic of my thesis is called the cultural divide, traditional cultural expressions and a modern entertainment industry in developing economies. My expertise is in intellectual property law, and in a nutshell, what that encompasses is the intangible, what you would call rights to music, rights to inventions, rights to anything that you would call a creation of the mind is intellectual property. And someone who comes up with that creativity gets the intellectual property rights as his own. And what pushed me into doing this research is that a few years ago, in 2009, I was seated in a law firm called CP Law Associates, where I'm an associate. And my senior colleague told me that a friend of his had contacted him and wanted some advice, of which all my senior associates is called Simon. He felt I was in a better position to help with the answers to the question. And the person that had contacted the firm was angry that the president of Uganda, His Excellency Yoweri Museveni, had come up with 2 points that the Ankole community had been using for so many years, over hundreds of years. These were folklore or traditional points from the Ankole community. And President Museveni had decided to coin these 2 points together and come up with the now famous "You Want Another Round." So this person felt that they wanted to do something about it. The president is not entitled to what we call copyright in intellectual property law for this song. And I realized I combed through our copyright law, which is the Copyright and Labor Rights Act of 2006, and I couldn't find a worthy answer to this person that had contacted me, something that would satisfy him. Because one, the law was rather vague on how you can stop someone from picking folklore and turning it into a modern song. And secondly, why stop this person in the first place? Because the president is also a member of the Ankole community, for instance. So it's really brought so many interesting questions my way. And eventually, when I went into doing my doctoral thesis, I decided that this is an area that I would explore and see how we can use our traditional cultural expressions, which that song, the Benkoni, as we now know it as Benkoni, is a traditional cultural expression. The thesis was in looking at how we can use traditional cultural expressions to better our developing economies, Uganda being one of them. So that formed my case study. The paper is on my case study, and for those of you that are really interested, I'll give you the link to my thesis, which is available online. I've contacted some publishers who are going to publish it as a book. So I'll talk a little bit more about that when I discuss as one of the questions that I was given. I'll just get quickly down to the summary of my questions. The first question I was asked is that in my recent blog, by the way, I contribute to a blog called Afro IP. It's an African intellectual property blog that brings together people like mine in interest concerning intellectual property all over Africa. So we contribute, discuss different issues concerning the development in the intellectual property world in Africa. And so I regularly put articles there, and there's one article I put there in 2013, and I was disturbed by something I picked up on the New Vision online, because, for those that can resonate with this, while we're out there doing our doctoral studies and the like, we feel closer to home, and we're always reading New Vision online, Monitor online, and the like. So I was back there in the States, and I picked up on this article that was talking about the National Biotechnology and Biosafety Bill that was being discussed in Parliament. And from what I had studied on biotechnology and biosafety, it's really to do with using microorganisms, bringing different microorganisms together to create something new. And what this bill is focusing on is to use artificial means of creating new plant activities. So I felt that this was going to in any way inhibit our local farmers from the way they've been practicing their crop husbandry and the like. So I contributed this blog, and my article in the blog was, the topic was biotechnology developments in Uganda, should we be jubilating? And it was posted on the Afro IP blog in March of 2013, so it's not that recent. And I was mainly asking questions that, should we jubilate that we have a new law that's going to come out and help us in how we can create new plant varieties out of artificial means? Will it really help our local farmers and the like? And I had a few responses to that. So the question I was asked for today's conference is that, okay, that I asserted that biotechnology developments are likely to ultimately destroy the means of survival for Ugandan farmers. So the question is there evidence to support this claim? Will a ban on food biotechnology result or pose a threat to competition? Before directly answering this, it goes back to part of what Dr. Nkata has been talking about, that we should look at research, we should, as policymakers, as doctoral students and doctoral holders, come out with information that is based on well-done research, quality research, as opposed to just thinking off the cuff. People who formulate, as he said, people who formulate and discuss policies should have a capacity to do so, and it should be well-grounded. So much of this is a blog. I thought through and picked my information from other online sources that I had been looking into. And these were various articles connected to farmers. We're talking about what farmers engage in with regard to plant varieties. I won't go into the specific websites that I looked at, but there's one report called the Union of Concerned Scientists, 2009 report, Failure to Yield. It has talked about genetically modified organisms, biotechnology, and plant varieties that come from man's creation of plants. And it discusses whether genetically modified crops are better than organic crops. In Uganda, we have mainly organic crops and the like. And the report is actually giving a very terrible picture as to whether we can gain so much from genetically modified crops. Because the main basis I used to write my blog.
First of all, I was saying through the reproductive age, through That's where HIV is. And therefore, potentially even the future is at stake, potential of the next generation as well as the current workforce. So I wanted to see how we can discuss the kind of work I'm doing, but also summarize the current advances in antiretroviral-based HIV prevention. I think this is very important for our country. Like Daniel did read a synopsis of what I did put forward was that for the last couple of years, there's been a decrease in the trend for HIV actually globally. However, that does not translate well when you deconstruct the global picture into the national picture. Interestingly, for us, being the pioneers of potential HIV prevention, at least in the region for the last couple of years, we seem to have fallen off the wagon for the last few years, and therefore our prevalence has shot up. That's the combination of so many factors. So I wanted to summarize the new interventions which have come globally around and which potentially can have a big impact to our nation as well as to our population and potentially drive our development when we have a healthy working population. So antiretrovirals, just not to be as a lecture, is just a medication used to treat HIV. However, recently, through empirical research from many clinical trials, they have been found that they can also be used to prevent HIV acquisition by two arms. One, by treating people who are HIV infected, and therefore potentially reducing the amount of virus within the population, therefore potentially these people will become infected. That is one. And two, used as, for people who have been out, especially when you are traveling back home, especially you've been there for ages, you also need to take antimalarials. That is pre-exposure prophylaxis. You want to prevent yourself that when by the time you come in, you already have the medication in place, so that even if you have a mosquito bite, you don't get malaria infection. So now this is what has been transferred into HIV. So HIV uninfected individuals and take antiretroviral-based medication, and therefore they reduce their chances of acquiring HIV. This is one of the breakthroughs of the last 3 years. And so those two combinations alone are very significant. For treating HIV infected people who are potentially in HIV service coronary couples, that's where when one person is HIV infected and the other person is HIV uninfected. This study which said if you treat anyone of those two, the one who is HIV infected, with antiretroviral-based medication as soon as you realize that that person is HIV infected and put them on treatment, their chances of transmitting their partner reduces by about 96%. That is phenomenal for any HIV prevention strategy. And the other way around, if you are a high-risk person and you get into high-risk behavior, and therefore you are at risk of acquiring HIV, if you take antiretroviral medication which are called pre-exposure prophylaxis, and you take the drugs well, your chances of reducing the risk of you acquiring HIV are way between in the heterosexual population at this point, like where coming from way beyond 65% to 75%. That is in the general population. However, if you take the drugs as you are being instructed, the chances go up to 90%. And I think that is really phenomenal. However, this intervention can only work if they are transferred to policy. And that's where I think we are the conundrum is at this particular moment. And the other bit, it can only work if people know their HIV status. So you need to test. If you are HIV positive, then you are put on treatment. Therefore, that will help us reduce the amount of virus circulating in the population, therefore can reduce the chances of them transmitting. If you are HIV negative, then you can be characterized into different risk group. Are you from the risk sector where you think the current intervention which are available can't help you, and therefore you potentially need to take medication? We have good intervention already in place. Be faithful, use condoms, and abstinence. Those alone have done wonders in the initial stages. However, they cannot sustain because they are behavior based. And therefore, for the condom, people are going to get condom fatigue. Abstinence, you're going to tell this to kids, but then they grow up and therefore they have to go, they are into the reproductive area, they have to think of children. So abstinence ceases at some point to be a current message. They are good but they can't sustain the prevention. So we need to add up together with the stream of other new interventions which have come up. And that's why I wanted to briefly talk about this. So like I told you, clinical trials done in Uganda have demonstrated that antiretroviral-based medication when taken as for HIV prevention do work. But one conundrum we have at the moment is how do we try to deliver this to the policymakers to be part of the mainstream prevention strategy in this country. And therefore, I thought if we talk with brilliant minds here, they are going to be part of our messengers to try and whoever you talk to who are in charge of policy to be aware that there is this kind of intervention. I was reading last week, I think the other week was HIV AIDS Day, and two articles did come out in New Vision. One and the other one was in Monitor. One of the from New Vision called me because I think this is a radio presenter. Is one of the popular guys. I think should be Radio Simba. And was saying he's been living in HIV discordant relationship since '94. Luckily enough, her partner is still HIV negative and they have successfully been able to transmit their infant. However, one of the conundrum is antiretroviral medication used as prevention can change their life. Why? One is saying the burden of prevention now lies on him. He has to be taking his medication so that he doesn't transmit. He gave an example that since '94 they have given birth to people. So that means they have had unprotected sex. So we can't. So that means along the way we are going to follow the work at some point. So we need to find intervention we can cover those loops. And it was lamenting that since the last 3 years when this intervention have been proclaimed to be working, we have not had any blueprint from the government showing that potentially identifying particular risk groups should be targeted for this intervention. One important point, I think, most important point I wanted to discuss for which ideas have advanced is PrEP when taken works, or an antiretroviral works. But you don't always have to be perfect. And barriers which people respond that when people take this medication they are going to become this to us. We should expect certain barriers, but how much of that barriers do happen? We do have some evidence which should help show whether actually people, when they know that, yes, this drug potentially works, whether they go crazy, something like that. Those are most of the things which are in hearsay, but empirical evidence are showing other ones. And I think that is the information we need potentially to put out as us potentially in research that, yes, these are potential risks, but how do they translate at the population level? At the individual level, they might be present, but how do they work at the population level? And then the other one is some of these drugs are wanted, like I was saying, that activist advocate was lamenting that this intervention are there, but the government has not come up with a policy whether. I think it's one thing not to say we don't have money for that, which is okay, but it's also another thing to come out and proclaim where you stand and you say maybe people who can afford can always access this intervention, something like that. And then the other one, there are risks actually in not taking up this intervention, but the biggest risk I think is not doing enough, and that is potential from us the researchers as well as from the government point of view. So one of the questions which did come up was, is the high HIV incidence in Uganda and Nigeria and South Africa, from what the synopsis Daniel gave, is a reflection of permissiveness compared to other sub-Saharan African countries, or a reflection of good reporting? It's hard to say. The numbers which are put, the numbers to measure the true change in new infection and the rate, that's measured as the rate and the incident rate. But the numbers normally, and the incidence rate is extremely hard to measure. So the numbers which are normally put up, especially in these agencies, the UNICEF and WHO, are actually just numbers of new infections, and that is a function of both the local prevalence of the number of people who are affected in HIV in that country, as well as its particular population. But the most worrying thing is always the trend. What is the trend like? It's not so much about the number, see in 2000 we had 120 HIV infections in Uganda, but what is the trend? Is it pointing upwards or downward? And I think it could be true that there is also good reporting in these countries, but it's hard to tease out that normally. But I think for the last 3 months, I think my colleague Bernard, who's also experienced in this area and always achieve it, is that there has been some improvement in the methodology used by UNAIDS as well as WHO, at least in measuring some of these parameters. So I think it's hard to tease out whether this is due still true to good reporting. But about permissiveness, I will say, at least for Uganda case, I think we did go off the wagon a bit. And I said we are fronting more so about the behavior-based intervention, which they have done substantial work to help us that this epidemic at a certain level. However, they cannot sustain that. We need other intervention which can close other gap. Like I said, the other person, he does know that his partner is HIV uninfected, but they were struggled with the decision of whether to have a child. So how do you help such a couple? They're not going to separate. They're in love and they're interested in having a child. They're not going to use a condom because they're interested in having a baby. So which intervention are they available? Because we are promoting about abstinence and economy. So these are interventions we can recover.
I work in government, and my motivation to undertake a PhD was because I realized that most of the people who are PhD holders were actually in the mainstream academia. I hadn't been in academia, so from government I decided to take on a PhD because I thought to complete the cycle of the demand and supply of research and innovation, we needed to have that collaboration of government, academia, research institutions, the consumers of research, and also the regulatory environment which supports research. So that's how I got motivated. Actually, I was working for the judiciary, and I thought I would do some work to improve the way judgments are analyzed and the court activity is performed. So I decided to take on a PhD, and my area of specialty then was natural language processing and artificial intelligence. So I really thought that using those tools, I should be able to assist the judicial officers in delivering their judgments faster by analyzing the court session information, be able to come up with more informed and focused judgments and decisions in their cases. It really worked, and I piloted it in the judiciary, and I got my PhD. That was in 2010. When I went back to government, I realized that ICT can do a lot more for government. And now we are talking about the digital era, and you cannot move away from ICT. All the disciplines depend on what? On ICT. But what happens is that there are challenges there. Number one, the cost of ICT solutions to facilitate service delivery. Number two, the security of the information. Number three, accessibility and the enabling environment. So I championed that in government. Dr. Kata is not here, but actually we are doing a lot of research to inform policies. I will take you through that, but back to the questions that I've been posed with, which are also in relation to the challenges I had realized. Number one is how was Uganda prepared to combat internet fraud, predators, and abusers? Yeah, this is a very big problem because people don't trust using ICTs. If you're, for instance, told to use internet banking and you are told that you have been given access to transfer funds electronically, and you are aware that some people can hack into your computer or can tap into your passwords and everything, then of course you're not what? You're not encouraged to use those solutions. But what has government done? Through research and innovation, we have developed what they call a SAT. That is a Computer Emergency Response Team. It's both a team of people as well as technologies. Now, what happens here is we get incidents of attacks, of what attempts of attacks have been done. And then we analyze the information using the several tools, technology tools, be able to get patterns and also see origins, and also see the root cause of such attacks, and are able to actually narrow down and get to the suspects who have committed those crimes. We have also had cyber laws, as you're all aware. We have the computer misuse law, we have the electronic transactions law, electronic signatures law, and these are laws that facilitate utilization of ICTs in transactions, business transactions, and other electronic transactions. Now, you must have heard, all of you, about some Bulgarians who are doing some dirty work on ATMs. These ones have been successfully convicted under the computer misuse law. You heard about people who hacked into the URA system and who are changing records to benefit themselves. These have also been convicted using these laws. Another area that we have looked at, we have actually created a National Information Security Advisory Group comprising of not only government, but industry players and academia. People have been chosen to advise on information security. And most of these are actually researchers in the areas of information security. So we use that. In that same vein, we have developed a National Information Security Framework, which has the policies, the standards, the procedures, the responsibilities of what should be done by all of us, right from accounting officers and ministries, how they should handle information security. And indeed, the President of Uganda signed a directive that this framework be implemented. So we're at the implementation stage, and this will really help us to ensure that our information is secure and that the citizenry trust information technology. Another thing that has been done is we ensured that we have some training conducted for the police, the judiciary, URA, and several other areas, and UCC, such that when, for instance, magistrates are deciding on cases concerning IT, they know the cyber laws very well, and they know what to do. The police also knows how to preserve evidence in that case. I know a situation where there was a computer fraud, and when the police came, see there's a monitor and then there's a CPU. The monitor is simply the screen. So they came and just got the screen and said, we have taken what? This evidence. So they kept it for about 4 months. We had to abuse it in what? In court. So when they reached court, they took the screen. And when we were called in to analyze, we really said you don't have anything, because this is just what? A screen. The actual data remained what? So we are doing all those to inform what? But we are doing a lot of awareness, and we are going to go out in the public. But I would want to tell you that we have that SAT and we have a website where everyone can post their comment. If you have an incident which has happened, you can post it there, then we follow it up. And we shall provide the right responses. You have heard we are working with the Ministry of Internal Affairs on the National ID project. It is in its advanced stages. And out of that National ID project, we are going to have a national data bank, which not only has bio details about citizens, but it will have many more details about citizens. For instance, It will link to your tax records, your medical records, of course those which are allowed to be accessed, and then can link to your bank records. If you go to open an account in the bank now, you know they ask you for LC letters, whatever, people who will stand in for you and all those things. So this time we won't have that when we have the National Data Bank, because they will authenticate the records from the what? From the National Data Bank, and it will have unique identification of people, fingerprints and everything, photos, all that. Out of the countries performing a virtual operation on someone with doctors around, and the internet goes off and they meet over what? An operation, you know what can happen. So we need to have internet bandwidth. In education, you could perform e-learning, that you have lecturers from the US, lecturing several institutions, say in Uganda, at the same time, but you all see the same. But we need instant connectivity for that to happen. So we realize that the bandwidth is, first of all, expensive, not reliable, and also not enough. The service providers can provide you half of what you actually pay for. So what have we done? Number one, you've heard of a national backbone infrastructure. That's a fiber optic cable, which we have laid the whole country. And already